The marble halls of the Galactic Senate echoed with the clicking of countless claws, the soft padding of various feet, and the occasional hiss of atmospheric adjusters accommodating different species' breathing requirements. Senator Xaxthara of the Void-born Empire adjusted her crystalline carapace as she glided toward the emergency session chamber, her 4 eyes scanning the worried faces of her colleagues. The crisis had begun 3 standard hours ago when the hegemony of Krell had issued an ultimatum to the smaller worlds of the outer spiral. Submit to their mining operations or face orbital bombardment. It was a classic power play, one that had worked for the Krell for centuries. Their massive dreadnoughts and genetically enhanced warriors had never faced serious opposition. This is precisely why we opposed Earth's admission, Senator Gorth rumbled, his rocky granite-kin features displaying obvious irritation. They contribute nothing but problems. Now we must waste precious time debating their ridiculous proposal. ZYXthara's mandibles clicked in agreement. The humans had been granted a seat in the Senate only 5 cycles ago, much to the dismay of many established powers. Their world was small, their technology appeared primitive, and their military seemed laughably inadequate compared to the galaxy's major forces. The only reason they'd been admitted was their peculiar talent for diplomacy and their ability to broker peace between warring factions. But now, as the outer spiral worlds faced annihilation, the human representative had requested an emergency session to present what they called an alternative solution. Most senators viewed this as naive idealism from a species that didn't understand real galactic politics. The chamber filled slowly, with representatives from over 300 worlds taking their positions. The atmosphere was tense, filled with the electronic translations of dozens of languages and the subtle chemical communications of species that relied on pheromones. At the center of the circular chamber, the ancient arbitration sphere hummed with energy, ready to record and transmit the proceedings across the galaxy. Senator Marcus Chun of Earth sat quietly in his designated seat, reviewing notes on his tablet, while other senators whispered among themselves. His appearance was unremarkable by galactic standards. Average height, brown hair beginning to show silver at the temples, and the kind of calm expression that had served human diplomats well in countless negotiations. The Krell delegation arrived last, as was their custom. Ambassador Brutic led them, his 7-foot frame encased in ceremonial battle armor that gleamed under the chamber's lights. Behind him marched 6 of his subordinates, each one a veteran warrior whose presence was meant to intimidate. The Krell had built their empire through strength, and they never let anyone forget it. Honored senators, the arbitrator's synthesized voice filled the chamber. We convene this emergency session to address the situation in the outer spiral. Ambassador Brutic of the Krell hegemony has requested the floor. The massive warrior stepped forward, his voice booming across the chamber without need for amplification. Senators of the galaxy, the hegemony merely seeks to bring order to chaos. The outer spiral worlds have failed to develop their resources efficiently. We offer them structure, purpose, and protection under our guidance. Those who resist waste everyone's time and resources. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several senators from smaller worlds shifted uncomfortably, knowing their own planets might face similar ultimatums in the future. The terms are simple, Brutic continued. Surrender mining rights to all heavy metals and rare elements. Accept Krell administrators to oversee planetary governance. Provide tribute ships and crews for our fleets. In exchange, we guarantee protection and stability. And if they refuse? Asked Senator Veltar of the Aquatic Consortium, her gills fluttering nervously. Brutic's laugh was like grinding metal. Then, they faced the consequences of their foolish pride. The hegemony has assembled a battle fleet of 200 dreadnoughts. We have given these worlds 72 standard hours to comply. When that time expires, we will demonstrate why resistance is futile. The chamber erupted in heated discussions. Some senators argued for economic sanctions against the Krell, others proposed diplomatic negotiations, and a few suggested military intervention by a coalition of Senate forces. But everyone knew the harsh reality. The Krell military was simply too powerful for any reasonable coalition to challenge. If I may, Marcus Chin's voice cut through the noise. surprisingly clear despite his lack of vocal modifications or amplification technology. The chamber gradually quieted as senators turned to look at the human representative. Many had forgotten he was even present. Ambassador Bruduk, Marcus said, standing and facing the Krell delegation with apparent calm. You speak of bringing order to chaos. But what you're proposing isn't order, it's subjugation. These worlds have the right to govern themselves. Bruduk's four eyes fixed on the human with something approaching amusement. And what would you propose instead, little diplomat? Perhaps we should ask these worlds nicely to share their resources? Maybe arrange a committee to study the situation for the next 50 cycles while their economies collapse. Actually, I have a different suggestion, Marcus replied. The Krell hegemony has built its reputation on military strength. You've never faced a real challenge because most civilizations prefer to surrender rather than fight. But what if someone was willing to stand against you? The chamber fell silent. Even the ambient humming of life support systems seemed to pause. You cannot be serious, Senator Gorth rumbled. Earth's entire fleet consists of what, 50 ships? The Krell have 200 dreadnoughts heading for the outer spiral alone. Numbers aren't everything, Marcus said quietly. I propose a formal challenge under the ancient codes of honor combat. Single fleet engagement, winner takes all. If we win, the Krell withdraw and leave the outer spiral worlds alone. If we lose, he shrugged. Well, then, you'll have proven your point about strength determining rights. Bruduk stared at the human for a long moment, then burst into laughter that echoed through the chamber like thunder. You challenge the hegemony? You? Your pathetic little world thinks it can stand against the might of Krell. Why not? Marcus asked. Unless you're afraid to face an opponent who might actually fight back instead of just surrendering. The insult hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Krell culture valued courage above all else, and questioning their bravery was the deepest possible insult. Bruduk's amusement vanished, replaced by cold fury. You dare question Krell courage? Your primitive species doesn't even understand real warfare. Very well, human. We accept your challenge. When your fleet burns in the void, perhaps the galaxy will finally understand why strength rules and weakness serves. The formal challenge procedures took several hours to complete. Ancient protocols had to be followed, witnesses selected, and terms clearly defined. The engagement would take place in the neutral zone of Kepler's Ridge, a region of space far from any inhabited systems. Each side would bring their chosen fleet. No reinforcements, no outside assistance. Winner takes all. As the session concluded and senators began filing out of the chamber, many paused to offer Marcus what they clearly viewed as final condolences. The humans had always been likable enough, but this was obviously suicide. Marcus, Zwiexthera approached him as the chamber emptied. I must ask, does Earth truly have some secret weapon? Some hidden strength we don't know about? The human diplomat smiled, an expression that somehow managed to be both sad and confident. Senator, in all our time here, how many wars has Earth started? None, she replied immediately. Your species seems almost pathologically peaceful. And how many conflicts have we helped resolve? Zwiexthera's crystalline features shifted thoughtfully. 17 major disputes, countless minor ones. Your mediation skills are exceptional. Do you know why we're so good at stopping wars? She shook her head, genuinely curious now. Because we understand them, Marcus said simply. Every human diplomat, every negotiator we send to resolve conflicts, we study war extensively. Not because we love it, but because we know that sometimes the only way to preserve peace is to be absolutely certain you can win if peace fails. With that cryptic comment, he gathered his materials and headed for the exit, leaving behind a chamber full of confused senators and one very thoughtful Voidborn. 3 days later, the news networks across the galaxy buzzed with unprecedented coverage. For the first time in over 2 centuries, someone had formally challenged the Krell hegemony to single combat. Betting pools opened on every civilized world, with odds heavily favoring the Krell. The smart money said the human fleet would last perhaps 10 minutes against Krell dreadnoughts. Admiral Sarah Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, humanity's newest and most advanced battleship, watching her tactical displays with professional calm. Around her, the bridge crew went through their pre-combat checks with quiet efficiency. No one seemed particularly nervous, which struck many observers as either admirable courage or stunning ignorance. "Admiral," reported Commander Jackson from the sensor station. "Krell fleet approaching on Vector 77 Mark IV. Confirmed count, 200 dreadnoughts, standard hegemony configuration." "Thank you, Commander." "Weapon status. All systems green, Admiral. Cruise report ready for engagement." Morrison nodded and activated the fleet communications channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth today. Every small world in the galaxy is watching. Every species that's ever been bullied by a stronger neighbor is counting on us. Show them what humanity can do." The responses came back crisp and professional. "Aye, Admiral. Ready to dance. Let's give them hell." As the two fleets closed to engagement range, something became apparent that made galactic observers pause their breathing. The human fleet wasn't arranged in any recognizable battle formation. Instead of the standard wall of ships presenting maximum firepower forward, the Earth vessels seemed scattered almost randomly across space. "What are they doing?" muttered Captain Vexhai of the Centaurian Navy from his position aboard a neutral observer ship. "That's not a battle line. That's barely organized chaos." Admiral Brudek of the Krell stood in the command center of his flagship, studying the human formation with growing confusion and contempt. "They don't even know how to fight," he growled to his tactical officer. "This will be a slaughter." "Sir," his communications officer reported, "the humans are requesting a brief delay to transmit a message to the galactic observers." "Let them say their goodbyes," Brudek laughed. "It matters nothing to us." The transmission came through clear and strong across all frequencies, reaching every news network and observer ship in the system. Marcus Chin appeared on screen, but he wasn't on a diplomatic station. He was clearly aboard a warship, wearing what looked like a command uniform. "Citizens of the galaxy," he began, his voice carrying the same calm confidence he'd shown in the Senate. "Today, humanity demonstrates why we deserve our place among you. But before we begin, there's something you should understand about Earth." The camera pulled back to show him standing in what was obviously a ship's-ready room, with star charts and tactical displays visible behind him. "Every species in the galaxy knows us as diplomats and peacemakers. And that's true. We prefer peace above all else. But what you don't know is that every human in our diplomatic corps is also a veteran of our military. Every ambassador is a former soldier. Every negotiator understands war not from textbooks, but from experience." He stepped closer to the camera, and for the first time, observers noticed something hard and cold in his eyes that hadn't been there during Senate sessions. "We don't start wars because we know exactly how to finish them. And today, the Krell hegemony is about to learn why Earth earned its seat at the galactic table not through weakness, but through the restraint that comes from absolute strength." The transmission ended, leaving systems full of confused aliens staring at their screens. "What did he mean by that?" Senator Gorth asked his aide. The answer came 60 seconds later when the human fleet opened fire. But these weren't the primitive missiles and energy weapons most species expected. The space around Kepler's Ridge suddenly filled with technologies that made even advanced civilizations step back in shock. Weapons that bent space itself, turning Krell armor into crushing prisons. Devices that manipulated time, making human ships effectively untouchable while slowing enemy vessels to crawl. Projectiles that phased through shields as if they weren't there, then rematerialized inside enemy hulls with devastating effect. "Impossible," whispered Captain Vexhai, watching his instruments register energy signatures that shouldn't exist. "Those weapon types are theoretical at best. The power requirements alone should be." His words trailed off as he watched the first wave of Krell dreadnoughts simply stop. Not destroyed, not disabled, stopped. Frozen in space as if time itself had forgotten them. Admiral Morrison's voice echoed across the human fleet. "Remember your training. Precision over power. Efficiency over brutality. Every shot counts." The battle that followed wasn't really a battle at all. It was a demonstration. The Krell, for all their courage and strength, found themselves fighting an enemy that operated by completely different rules. Their weapons couldn't hit targets that existed slightly outside normal time. Their shields offered no protection against weapons that attacked them from other dimensions. Their tactical doctrine, built around overwhelming force and direct confrontation, proved useless against an enemy that had mastered the art of fighting without being fought. In the space of 30 minutes, the most feared military force in the galaxy was reduced to drifting hulks and rescue beacons. Not destroyed, the humans showed remarkable restraint in that regard, but utterly, completely defeated. As the last Krell vessel surrendered, Admiral Morrison opened a channel to the flagship. "Admiral Burdock, this is Admiral Morrison of Earth Fleet. Do you yield?" The response took several minutes to come, and when it did, the voice of the Krell commander was subdued, almost bewildered. "We yield. How? How is this possible? Your technology, it should not exist." "It exists because we needed it to," Morrison replied simply. "When you spend centuries mediating between species that could destroy you with a thought, you learn to develop alternatives. Insurance policies, you might say." The aftermath of the engagement sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy that would continue for years. The outer spiral worlds were safe, yes, but that was almost a footnote compared to the larger implications. Earth, the quiet diplomatic world that everyone had tolerated rather than respected, had just demonstrated military capabilities that surpassed the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Technologies that seemed to violate known physics had been deployed with casual efficiency. A fleet that no one had considered a serious threat had defeated the Krell hegemony without losing a single ship. As news of the engagement spread, one question echoed through government chambers, military academies, and diplomatic circles across known space. If this was what humans could do when they chose to fight, what exactly had they been doing all this time when they chose not to? The answer to that question would reshape galactic politics forever. But, for now, as rescue ships moved to assist the defeated Krell and the human fleet began its journey home, one thing was absolutely clear. Earth had not been given its seat in the Galactic Senate. Earth had earned it. The emergency session of the Galactic Intelligence Council convened in a secure chamber beneath the Senate complex, its walls lined with quantum-encrypted shields that prevented any form of surveillance. Director H. Van of the Altarian Intelligence Service tapped her six-fingered hands nervously on the polished metal table as she waited for the other directors to arrive. The events at Kepler's Ridge had shattered more than just Krell military supremacy. They had exposed a fundamental gap in galactic intelligence gathering that made every major power question what else they might have missed. How did we not know? Director Krex of the Orion Trade Federation slammed his scaled fist on the table as he entered the chamber. Our economic intelligence alone should have detected the resource allocation necessary for such technology development. Director Ichvan's luminous eyes dimmed slightly. That's what we're here to determine. And, frankly, what we've discovered since the engagement is disturbing. The other directors filed in over the next few minutes, representing the intelligence services of every major galactic power. The Centaurian Military Intelligence Bureau, the Crystalline Collective's Information Network, the Hive Mind's Analytical Processing Division, all the organizations that prided themselves on knowing everything that happened in their respective sectors of space. Ladies, gentlemen, and assorted entities, Director Ichvan called the meeting to order. We all know why we're here. The human military demonstration has raised questions that go far beyond simple technological advancement. Agent Sylphie, please present your initial findings. A slender void-born intelligence analyst stepped forward, her crystalline features reflecting the chamber's subdued lighting. Directors, we've been analyzing Earth's activities for the past 50 standard cycles, essentially since they achieved faster-than-light travel. What we've found suggests that our understanding of human civilization has been incomplete. She activated a holographic display showing a timeline of human activities throughout the galaxy. On the surface, everything appears exactly as we believed. Diplomatic missions, trade negotiations, cultural exchanges. Standard activities for a peaceful species seeking integration into galactic society. But, Director Krex interrupted, there's always a but in these reports. Indeed, when we dig deeper into the specifics of these activities, patterns emerge that we previously dismissed as coincidence. For instance, human diplomatic missions consistently visit systems with unique stellar phenomena, rare mineral deposits, or unusual spatial anomalies. Director Vorth of the Hive Mind leaned forward, his compound eyes focusing intently. You're suggesting these weren't diplomatic missions at all? I'm suggesting they served multiple purposes. Every human diplomatic ship carried scientific equipment far beyond what would be necessary for their stated missions. We have records of human vessels conducting detailed scans of quantum flux points, gravitational anomalies, and dimensional weak spots throughout the galaxy. The hologram shifted to show shipping records and resource allocations. Furthermore, human requests for rare materials often seemed oddly specific. They would purchase small quantities of elements that have no apparent use in their known technology, materials that, we now realize, would be essential components for space-time manipulation devices. Director Z.H. Van took control of the presentation. But the most significant discovery is this. Every major galactic conflict over the past 30 cycles shows evidence of subtle human involvement, not as participants, but as observers with remarkably detailed intelligence about the capabilities of all parties involved. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They've been studying us, Director Krex said slowly. All of us, learning our strengths, our weaknesses, our tactical doctrines. More than that, Agent Sylphie added. They've been field testing their theoretical weapons systems by observing how different species' technologies interact under combat conditions. Every war, every skirmish, every military exercise they've mediated has provided them with data about galactic military capabilities. Director Vorth's antennae twitched with agitation. The peace negotiations. They weren't just preventing wars, they were gathering intelligence on how to fight them. The revelation hung in the air like a poisonous cloud. The humans hadn't just hidden advanced technology. They had spent decades systematically analyzing the military capabilities of every major galactic power while presenting themselves as harmless diplomats. There's more, Director Z.H. Van continued grimly. We've identified at least 40 human installations throughout the galaxy that we previously classified as research stations or cultural centers. Post-Kepler Ridge analysis suggests these are actually strategic observation posts positioned to monitor major shipping lanes, military bases, and governmental centers. She manipulated the hologram to show a three-dimensional map of the galaxy with human installations marked in red. The pattern was immediately obvious. They formed a comprehensive intelligence network that covered every significant system in known space. How many humans are actually involved in this deception? Asked Director Nexua of the Aquatic Consortium. That's perhaps the most unsettling aspect, Agent Sylphie replied. Our analysis suggests that every human in the diplomatic corps is part of this intelligence operation, not through deception or coercion, but as a fundamental aspect of their training and mission. She brought up personnel files showing human ambassadors and negotiators. Each one has extensive military training, advanced scientific education, and specialized intelligence gathering skills. They're not diplomats who happen to be observant. They're intelligence operatives who happen to be excellent at diplomacy. The realization struck the directors like a physical blow. The humans hadn't infiltrated the galactic community. They had joined it as the most sophisticated intelligence operation in recorded history. We need to understand their actual capabilities, Director Krex said. The weapons they demonstrated at Kepler's Ridge, how advanced are they really? Director Z.H. Van activated a new set of data. Our science teams have been analyzing the battle footage and energy signatures. The preliminary results are concerning. The humans appear to have mastered technologies that our most advanced civilizations consider impossible. Elaborate, Director Vorth demanded. Temporal manipulation on a tactical level. Dimensional phase weapons. Gravity field generators that can create localized space-time distortions. Some of the energy signatures suggest they may have achieved limited control over fundamental forces of physics. Agent Sylphie added, what's particularly troubling is that none of this technology appears to be newly developed. The efficiency with which they deployed these weapons suggests decades of refinement and testing. Where? Director Krex asked. Where could they have tested such weapons without our detection? We believe they've been using the dimensional rifts and quantum anomalies they've been studying. Testing facilities hidden in folded space, temporal pocket dimensions, areas of space that exist outside normal physics. Essentially, They've been building a secret military-industrial complex in places we can't even access, much less observe. The implications were staggering. While the galactic community had welcomed humans as peaceful partners, they had been quietly developing capabilities that could theoretically challenge every major power simultaneously. Assessment of current threat level? Director ZH Van asked formally. Agent Sylphie consulted her datapad. Unknown, but potentially absolute. If the Kepler's Ridge engagement represents their current standard capabilities, then no existing galactic military could offer meaningful resistance. Their technology appears to be at least 3 generations beyond our most advanced systems. But they haven't shown any aggressive intentions, Director Nexue pointed out. They could have conquered the galaxy by now if that was their goal. That's what makes this so difficult to analyze, Director Zichvan admitted. Their behavior suggests they genuinely prefer peaceful coexistence. But they've also demonstrated they have the capability to enforce that preference against any opposition. Director Vortha's compound eyes reflected the chamber's lights as he processed this information. We're dealing with a species that has achieved military supremacy while maintaining the facade of peaceful integration. The question is, what do they actually want? Before anyone could respond, a priority alert chimed through the chamber's communications system. Director ZH Van activated the emergency channel. Director, came the voice of her deputy. We're receiving a transmission from Earth Fleet Admiral Morrison. She's requesting a private communication with the Intelligence Council. The directors exchanged uneasy glances. Put it through, ZH Van ordered. The holographic display shifted to show Admiral Morrison standing on what appeared to be the bridge of a human starship. Her expression was calm, but serious, and she seemed to be looking directly at each director individually. Directors of the Galactic Intelligence Council, she began without preamble. I believe you're currently conducting an emergency analysis of human capabilities and intentions. I thought it might be helpful to provide some clarification. The shock in the room was palpable. Not only did the humans know about this highly classified meeting, but they had somehow bypassed every security measure to communicate directly with them. How are you? Director Krex began. Accessing your secure chamber? The same way we've been monitoring galactic intelligence activities for the past 30 years. Directors, we've known about every intelligence operation, every surveillance program, and every classified assessment your organizations have conducted regarding Earth. Agent Sylphie stepped forward, her crystalline features displaying obvious distress. That's impossible. Our security protocols are quite good, actually. Admiral Morrison interrupted with what might have been a smile. But when you master dimensional physics, traditional concepts of secure communication become flexible. Director ZH Van found her voice. What do you want from us? Nothing, actually. I'm here to offer you something. Truth. Complete, honest transparency about human capabilities and intentions. Because the alternative, allowing this atmosphere of suspicion and fear to develop, serves no one's interests. The Admiral manipulated controls outside the viewing area, and suddenly, the chamber's displays activated with information that made the intelligence directors gasp. Detailed schematics of human technology, complete assessments of galactic military capabilities, strategic analyses that went far beyond anything their own organizations had produced. This is our actual technological baseline, Morrison explained. This is our assessment of every major galactic power's strengths and weaknesses. This is our strategic doctrine, and this is our goal. The final display showed a simple statement: peaceful coexistence through deterrent superiority. You see, directors, humanity learned something important during our own planetary conflicts. Peace isn't maintained by good intentions or diplomatic agreements. Peace is maintained by ensuring that war becomes an unacceptable option for all parties involved. Director Vorth leaned forward. You're saying you developed this technology specifically to prevent galactic conflict? Not prevent, eliminate as a viable option. When every potential aggressor knows that military action will result in certain defeat, they tend to choose negotiation instead. The Krell hegemony just learned that lesson. Admiral Morrison's image shifted as she moved to what appeared to be a tactical display. For 50 years, humanity has watched galactic civilization struggle with the same problems we faced on Earth. Stronger powers bullying weaker ones, resource conflicts escalating to warfare, technological advancement being driven primarily by military applications. So you decided to become the galaxy's police force? Director Krex asked, his tone a mixture of suspicion and confusion. No, we decided to become the galaxy's insurance policy. We don't police anyone. We simply ensure that the cost of aggressive action always exceeds any possible benefit. The implications of this revelation rippled through the chamber. The humans hadn't been secretly preparing for conquest. They had been preparing to make conquest impossible. Why reveal this now? Director ZH asked. You could have maintained your secret indefinitely. Because secrets create fear, and fear creates instability. The Kepler's Ridge engagement was necessary to stop the Krell, but it also exposed capabilities we would have preferred to keep theoretical. Rather than let speculation and paranoia drive galactic policy, we're offering complete transparency. Admiral Morrison manipulated more controls, and suddenly, each director's personal communicator activated with massive data downloads. These files contain everything. Our complete technological specifications, our current military assets, our strategic assessments of every galactic power, and our long-term plans for galactic stability. Share them with your respective governments. Let them make informed decisions about how they want to interact with Earth going forward. Agent Sylphie stared at her communicator in amazement. This much classified information, why would you simply give it away? Because true power doesn't require secrecy, Agent. When everyone knows exactly what you're capable of, and exactly what you intend to do, they can make rational decisions about how to respond. Uncertainty breeds conflict. Clarity promotes stability. Director Vorth's antennae twitched rapidly as he processed this information. And if some governments decide that your capabilities represent an unacceptable threat, if they choose to unite against Earth. Admiral Morrison's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in her eyes. Then, they will discover that our capabilities extend far beyond what they witnessed at Kepler's Ridge. But we prefer they not make that discovery, which is why we're having this conversation. The transmission ended, leaving the intelligence directors alone with their thoughts and several terabytes of information that would fundamentally reshape their understanding of galactic politics. Well, Director HFY said after a long silence, I believe we have our answer about human intentions. Do we? Director Krex asked. They claim to want peace, but they've essentially achieved military hegemony through deception. Not deception, Agent Sylphie corrected thoughtfully. More like strategic patience. They never lied about their capabilities. They simply didn't volunteer information that wasn't requested. Director Vorth stood and moved to the chamber's viewport, looking out at the stars. The question now is whether the galaxy can accept this new reality. A single species with the power to dictate terms to everyone else, claiming they only want to maintain peace. The alternative, Director Zichvin pointed out, is to test whether they're telling the truth about their capabilities extending beyond Kepler's Ridge. As the directors began the process of analyzing the human data dumps and preparing reports for their respective governments, one fact became increasingly clear. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had just revealed that they possessed the power to enforce galactic peace through overwhelming deterrence. Whether that power would be used wisely, whether it could be trusted in the hands of a single species, and whether the galactic community would accept this new paradigm would determine the future of civilization itself. But, as intelligence reports began flowing to governments across the galaxy, one thing was becoming apparent. The humans had thought very carefully about these questions long before revealing their true capabilities. The real question wasn't whether humanity could be trusted with such power. The question was whether the galaxy was ready to learn what they had been planning to do with it. Dr. Hilara Zhves adjusted her bioluminescent head tentacles nervously as she stood before the most prestigious gathering in galactic scientific history. The Emergency Symposium on Human Technology had drawn researchers from every major civilization, all desperate to understand how Earth had achieved seemingly impossible breakthroughs. The amphitheater on the neutral world of Proxima Scholara buzzed with dozens of different forms of communication. Crystalline beings chimed in harmonic frequencies, gas cloud entities shifted colors to express complex thoughts, and Traditional vocal species debated in translated whispers that filled the air with overlapping conversations. Colleagues, Dr. Zifes called the assembly to order, her voice carried by universal translators to every being present. We convened this symposium not merely to study new technology, but to understand what may be a fundamental shift in our comprehension of physics itself. She activated the central holographic display, showing the energy signatures recorded during the Kepler's Ridge engagement. The data patterns made several attendees lean forward with intense interest while others recoiled in disbelief. These readings represent weapon discharges that appear to violate several established physical laws. Temporal displacement on a macro scale, dimensional phase shifting of solid matter, gravitational field manipulation that suggests control over space-time itself. Professor QX Alone of the Rigelian Science Institute rippled his chromatic skin in the pattern that indicated extreme skepticism. Dr. HFY, with respect, these readings must represent measurement errors or unknown technological deception. The energy requirements for true temporal manipulation would exceed the output of most star systems. That was our initial assessment as well, Dr. HFY replied, manipulating the display to show power consumption analyses. However, additional data suggests the humans have developed energy generation techniques that surpass our understanding. A new figure appeared in the display. Dr. Elizabeth Sterling, former head of theoretical physics at the Solar Research Institute and current science advisor to the Galactic Senate. Her presence at the symposium had been both anticipated and dreaded by her alien colleagues. Dr. Sterling, called Professor Velthok of the Centaurian Academy, his rocky features displaying obvious tension. Perhaps you could enlighten us about how your species has apparently revolutionized physics without the galactic community's awareness? Dr. Sterling smiled, a human expression that many aliens found difficult to interpret but which in this case seemed genuinely warm rather than threatening. Professor, I'd be happy to explain, but I should warn you that the explanation may be more disturbing than the technology itself. She moved to the central display and began manipulating the controls with practiced ease. The first thing to understand is that we didn't revolutionize physics. We simply stopped limiting ourselves to the physics you've all agreed upon. The display shifted to show comparative technological development charts for major galactic civilizations. Each species that joins the galactic community tends to follow similar technological paths. You develop faster than light travel, energy shields, beam weapons, artificial gravity, all variations on the same basic principles. Dr. Sterling highlighted sections of the chart that showed technological convergence among different species. This happens because you share information, collaborate on research, and naturally tend toward solutions that work well with existing galactic infrastructure. It's efficient, but it's also limiting. Professor QX Alone's skin patterns shifted to display confusion. Are you suggesting that galactic cooperation has somehow hindered technological advancement? Not hindered, channeled. When 1,000 brilliant civilizations all work together toward the same goals using similar approaches, you get increasingly sophisticated versions of the same basic technologies. But you don't get revolutionary breakthroughs. Dr. Sterling activated a new display showing human technological development over the past century. The progression was unlike anything the alien scientists had seen. Instead of gradual improvements along established paths, it showed radical departures into completely unexplored theoretical territories. Humanity developed in isolation, she explained. We had no one to tell us what was possible or impossible, no established technological paradigms to follow. So we explored everything, no matter how impractical or impossible it seemed. Dr. ZHVS studied the human development patterns with growing amazement. You're saying you ignored conventional wisdom because you didn't know it existed? Exactly. When we achieved FDL travel, we didn't know it was supposed to be impossible to exceed certain speed thresholds, so we kept pushing the boundaries. When we developed energy shields, we didn't know they were supposed to be permeable to certain frequencies, so we made them absolute barriers. When we studied time dilation effects, we didn't know temporal manipulation was considered impossible, so we figured out how to do it. The implications of this revelation rippled through the amphitheater like a shock wave. The humans hadn't achieved superior technology through superior intelligence or resources. They had achieved it through ignorance of limitations that other species accepted as fundamental. Professor Velthok's rocky features shifted into what passed for dismay among his species. But surely the mathematics should have shown these approaches to be impossible. The energy equations alone follow different rules when you don't assume certain constants are actually constant, Dr. Sterling interrupted. For instance, the speed of light limitation that forms the basis for most galactic FTL theory assumes a stable spacetime metric. But if you develop technology that can locally alter that metric, she activated a demonstration that made half the scientists in the amphitheater gasp. A small probe in the display began moving faster than light without technically exceeding light speed. Instead, it was contracting space in front of it and expanding space behind it, effectively riding a wave in spacetime itself. This is our standard FTL drive system, Dr. Sterling explained casually. We call it an Alcubierre drive, after the human physicist who theorized it. We've been using variations of this technology for 40 years. Dr. HFY's bioluminescent tentacles flickered rapidly, a sign of extreme cognitive stress among her species. Dr. Sterling, the energy requirements for space-time manipulation on this scale should be astronomical. How do you power such systems? The human scientist smiled again, and this time several aliens recognized the expression as anticipatory amusement. That brings us to our second fundamental breakthrough. We solved the energy problem by realizing it wasn't actually a problem. A new display activated showing human power generation systems that made the assembled scientists collectively hold their breath. Zero-point energy extraction, vacuum fluctuation harvesting, dimensional energy tap systems. We don't generate power in the traditional sense. We access the infinite energy that already exists in empty space. Professor QXalone's chromatic display shifted through several colors that indicated his species' equivalent of stunned disbelief. You're accessing zero-point energy? On an industrial scale? That's been theoretically impossible for millennia. Only if you accept that certain quantum mechanical principles can't be violated, Dr. Sterling replied. But quantum mechanics is just our best current description of reality, not reality itself. When we stopped treating scientific theories as absolute truths and started treating them as useful approximations, we found ways to work around their apparent limitations. The demonstration that followed left the alien scientists speechless. Dr. Sterling activated a device no larger than a briefcase that began generating power levels equivalent to a fusion reactor. The energy readings were unmistakable, but the device appeared to be drawing power from literally nothing. This is a standard portable power unit from one of our smaller research vessels, she explained. It can operate continuously for centuries without fuel because it's not consuming fuel. It's tapping into the fundamental energy of space itself. Dr. ZHVS found her voice first. Dr. Sterling, if humanity has possessed these technologies for decades, why didn't you share them with the galactic community? The advancement possibilities are staggering. The human scientist's expression became more serious. Because we weren't sure the galactic community was ready for them. These technologies don't just represent advancement. They represent the potential for unprecedented destruction. She activated a new display showing theoretical applications of human technology that made several scientists immediately call for their home governments to be notified. Temporal manipulation can erase entire civilizations from history. Dimensional phase technology can make matter selectively permeable to reality itself. Zero-point energy extraction, if misapplied, could theoretically destabilize spacetime on a galactic scale. The amphitheater fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't just developed superior weapons. They had developed technologies that could potentially unravel the fabric of reality itself. Professor Velthok spoke for all of them when he asked, how do we know these technologies are safe? What prevents them from causing the catastrophic effects you've described? Extensive testing and very careful application protocols, Dr. Sterling replied. We've spent 50 years learning to use these technologies responsibly. Every device, every application, every deployment is carefully designed with multiple fail-safes and limitation systems. She showed them safety protocols that were more complex than most civilizations' entire technological databases. For instance, our temporal manipulation systems are limited to small-scale, short-duration effects specifically to prevent paradox formation. Our dimensional phase weapons automatically return affected matter to normal space-time within seconds to prevent permanent reality breaches. Dr. ZHVS studied the safety specifications with growing amazement. You've essentially developed technologies that could destroy the galaxy, then spent equal effort ensuring they can't actually do so. Exactly. Power without control is destruction. We learned that lesson very thoroughly during our own planetary conflicts. Professor QXalone's skin displayed patterns indicating deep thought. Dr. Sterling, these technologies you've demonstrated, are they representative of your current capabilities or merely what you're comfortable revealing? The human scientist paused, choosing her words carefully. Professor, what I've shown you today represents our baseline technology. The systems we use for routine operations, standard equipment, everyday applications. And your advanced technology? Dr. Sterling's expression became unreadable. Let's just say that what you witnessed at Kepler's Ridge was a very restrained demonstration conducted with training equipment and powered-down systems. The implication hung in the air like a toxic cloud. If the devastating display at Kepler's Ridge represented restrained use of training equipment, what could humanity accomplish with their full capabilities? There is one more thing you should understand, Dr. Sterling continued, activating a final display that showed the scope of human technological development. Everything I've shown you today, temporal manipulation, dimensional phase technology, zero-point energy, these are just the foundation technologies, the building blocks we use to create more advanced systems. The display showed research projects that made the alien scientists' minds reel. Pocket universe generation for manufacturing and research. Probability manipulation systems that could alter the likelihood of specific outcomes. Consciousness transfer technologies that could preserve minds independently of physical bodies. Matter compilation systems that could transform energy directly into any desired atomic structure. We've been developing these capabilities for over a century, Dr. Sterling explained. Not as weapons, but as tools for creating a post-scarcity civilization. Unlimited energy, unlimited matter transformation, unlimited space through pocket universe creation, unlimited time through temporal manipulation. Professor Velfox's voice carried a note of something approaching awe. You've achieved practical omnipotence. We've achieved the tools for it, Dr. Sterling corrected. But omnipotence without wisdom is catastrophe. That's why we've spent so much time studying other civilizations, learning from your successes and mistakes, understanding how different species use power and technology. Dr. ZHVS felt her bioluminescent tentacles dimming as the full scope of human capabilities became clear. Dr. Sterling, why are you telling us this? Why reveal capabilities that could make every other species in the galaxy obsolete? The human scientist's smile returned, but now it carried a weight of sadness that even alien observers could recognize. Because, Dr. ZHVS, we don't want to be gods. We want to be partners. She gestured to the assembled scientists, representatives of dozens of brilliant civilizations. Humanity discovered these technologies through isolation and ignorance of limitations. But we've also discovered that having the power to do anything doesn't tell you what you should do. That requires wisdom, perspective, and the insights that can only come from diverse viewpoints and experiences. The final display showed a projected future where human technologies were integrated with the knowledge and wisdom of galactic civilization. We're offering to share everything. Every technology, every technique, every discovery. But only if the galactic community chooses to work with us to develop ethical frameworks for their use. Professor QXalone's chromatic patterns displayed what his species considered profound contemplation. And if we choose not to work with you? If some civilizations decide your capabilities represent an unacceptable threat, Dr. Sterling's expression became carefully neutral. Then, they'll discover that what I've shown you today doesn't represent our defensive capabilities. We genuinely prefer cooperation, professors, but we're not naive about galactic politics. As the symposium ended and scientists began returning to their home worlds with data that would reshape their understanding of possible technology, one question dominated every conversation. Had humanity just offered the galaxy a path to unprecedented prosperity, or had they politely informed everyone that resistance was futile? The answer, Dr. Zichves realized as she compiled her report, might depend entirely on how the galaxy chose to respond to this unprecedented offer of partnership from beings who had casually transcended the laws of physics, while everyone else was still arguing about whether such transcendence was theoretically possible. But one thing was becoming increasingly clear as reports filtered back to home governments. The age of humanity hiding their true capabilities was over. The age of humanity teaching the galaxy what those capabilities could accomplish was just beginning. The coalition war room buzzed with tension that could be felt across multiple dimensions of existence. Representatives from 18 of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations had gathered on the neutral moon of Terminus Prime, their combined fleets hidden in the system's outer asteroid fields. The mood was grim, desperate, and unified by a single purpose: deciding what to do about the human problem. Chancellor Vexmari of the Draconian Empire stood before the assembled delegates, her scaled features displaying the controlled fury that had made her species famous throughout the galaxy. Fellow leaders, we face an unprecedented threat to galactic sovereignty. A single species has achieved technological supremacy that renders all our combined forces obsolete. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber as delegates shifted uncomfortably in their various environmental suits and atmospheric containment fields. The revelation of human capabilities had shattered the careful balance of power that had maintained galactic stability for centuries. The humans claim peaceful intentions, Chancellor Vexmari continued, but history teaches us that absolute power corrupts absolutely. We cannot allow a single species to hold the fate of all civilization in their hands, regardless of their current benevolent facade. Admiral Gorth UK of the Stonemarch Confederation slammed his massive fist on the table, the impact reverberating through the chamber's reinforced structure. They've made fools of us all. For decades, they sat in our councils, smiled at our gatherings, and secretly plotted our subjugation. Not plotted, corrected Director Yilvana of the Mentalist Collective, her psychic emanations carrying undertones of fear and respect. Prepared. There's a difference. Everything we've learned suggests they genuinely hoped to never reveal these capabilities. Empress Silandra of the Azure Dominion leaned forward, her ethereal form shimmering with contained energy. Hope is irrelevant. Capability is what matters. They can destroy any of our civilizations without meaningful resistance. That level of power concentration is inherently destabilizing. The debate that followed revealed the deep fractures in galactic unity that the human revelation had exposed. Some delegates argued for immediate preemptive action, while others counseled caution. A few even suggested accommodation, though they were quickly shouted down by the more militant voices. The question before us is simple, declared President Mordak of the Technocratic Alliance. Do we act now, while we still have the element of surprise and numerical superiority, or do we wait until they decide we're inconvenient? Director Yilvana's psychic emanations carried sharp disagreement. You're assuming they haven't already anticipated this gathering. Given their demonstrated intelligence capabilities, they likely know about this meeting before we do. The uncomfortable truth of her words settled over the chamber like a poisonous fog. If the humans had been conducting galaxy-wide surveillance for decades without detection, what made any of them think this supposedly secret coalition was actually secret? Then, we accelerate our timeline, Chancellor Vexmari declared. Operation Prometheus launches in 72 hours. Combined fleet assault on Earth system, followed by simultaneous strikes on all known human installations throughout the galaxy. Admiral Gorth UK activated his tactical display, showing the disposition of coalition forces. We have assembled the largest military force in galactic history. 30,000 capital ships, 500,000 support vessels, planetary siege platforms, stellar disruptors. Even if their technology is superior, they cannot withstand this level of concentrated firepower. Empress Silandra's form flickered with uncertainty. Can't they? Admiral, we've seen footage of their weapons bending time and space itself. What if our conventional tactics are simply irrelevant? Then, we overwhelm them with numbers, President Mordak replied. No technology is perfect. No defense is absolute. If we hit them hard enough, fast enough, something will get through. Director Yilvana stood abruptly, her psychic emanations now carrying alarm. Colleagues, I'm detecting an anomalous presence in this chamber. Something is. The lights dimmed, and suddenly, the chamber's atmosphere shifted. Not physically, but in some fundamental way that made every being present feel as though they were being observed by something vast and patient. Good afternoon, coalition leadership. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, speaking in each delegate's native language simultaneously, while somehow remaining recognizably the same voice. The holographic display activated without command, showing the familiar figure of Admiral Morrison standing what appeared to be the bridge of a human vessel. Admiral Morrison, Chancellor Vexmari said with forced calm, I assume you're here to threaten us into abandoning our defensive preparations? Actually, Chancellor, I'm here to prevent unnecessary tragedy. Your Operation Prometheus represents the largest military mobilization in galactic history, and I respect the courage it must have taken to organize it. But I can't allow it to proceed. Admiral Gorthuke rose to his full, imposing height. You cannot stop the combined might of 18 civilizations, human. Your technology may be advanced, but you're still vastly outnumbered. Admiral Morrison's expression carried something that might have been sympathy. Admiral, let me show you something that your intelligence services haven't discovered yet. The holographic display shifted to show what appeared to be empty space near the Coalition's hidden fleet positions. Then, the view enhanced, revealing objects that made every delegate gasp in recognition and horror. Human ships, hundreds of them, positioned around each Coalition fleet group with impossible stealth. Ships that had somehow remained completely undetected despite being close enough to observe every vessel in the Coalition forces. We've been monitoring your mobilization since it began 6 months ago, Admiral Morrison explained casually. Every ship movement, every strategic planning session, every communication between your governments. We know about your backup fleets, your secondary objectives, your contingency plans, and your emergency protocols. President Mordak stared at the displays showing human vessels positioned with surgical precision around his technological alliance's most advanced stealth ships. Impossible. Our detection systems would have detected ships operating within normal spacetime parameters, Admiral Morrison agreed. But our vessels aren't technically occupying the same dimensional framework as yours. We exist slightly outside standard reality, which makes us effectively invisible to conventional sensors. Director Yilvana's psychic emanations carried pure amazement. Phase-shifted existence. You're not just using advanced technology. You're operating from outside the normal physical framework entirely. Correct. And that's just one of several operational advantages we maintain. But I'm not here to demonstrate superiority, Director. I'm here to prevent a catastrophic misunderstanding. Chancellor Vexmari's scales shifted to display aggressive challenge patterns. What misunderstanding? You've achieved technological dominance through deception and now expect us to simply submit to human authority. Admiral Morrison's expression became more serious. Chancellor, you're operating under a fundamental misconception about human intentions. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We want to protect it. From what? Empress Silandra asked, her ethereal form flickering with curiosity. The holographic display shifted again, showing star charts that extended far beyond known galactic boundaries. Red markers indicated threats that made the assembled delegates lean forward with growing alarm. From them, Admiral Morrison said simply. The display zoomed in on the red markers, revealing massive structures moving through intergalactic space toward their galaxy. The size and configuration of these objects suggested technology that dwarfed even humanity's demonstrated capabilities. The Harvesters, Admiral Morrison explained, a machine civilization that consumes entire galaxies, breaking down all matter and energy to fuel their own expansion. They've been moving toward our galaxy for approximately 50,000 years. They'll arrive in roughly 230 years. The coalition chamber erupted in chaos as delegates demanded more information, challenged the data, and tried to process the implications of an extragalactic threat that made their current concerns seem trivial. Why are you telling us this now? Admiral Gorthuke demanded once order was restored. Because defending against the harvesters requires the combined effort of every advanced civilization in the galaxy. We can't do it alone, and we can't do it while expending resources on internal conflicts. Director Yilvana's psychic emanations carried complex patterns of analysis and growing understanding. The peaceful integration strategy, the intelligence gathering, the technological development. You've been preparing for this threat all along. Yes, everything we've done for the past century has been focused on ensuring that galactic civilization survives the harvester arrival. The diplomatic relationships we've built, the technologies we've developed, the strategic positions we've established, all of it was preparation for a war that most of the galaxy doesn't even know is coming. President Mordax studied the approaching threat indicators with growing horror. These harvesters, what are their capabilities? How do we know conventional galactic military power would be insufficient? Admiral Morrison manipulated the display to show recorded encounters between the harvesters and other galactic civilizations. The footage was horrifying in its clinical efficiency. Entire star systems consumed in matter of days, populations of trillions reduced to component atoms, advanced technologies rendered obsolete by machines that appeared to operate on principles beyond current understanding. 16 galaxies have fallen to them over the past million years, she explained. Each one had civilizations comparable to our own, some significantly more advanced. None of them survived first contact. Empress Salandra's form dimmed considerably. And you believe our galaxy can succeed where 16 others have failed? I believe our galaxy has advantages the others didn't. Specifically, they didn't have humanity. Chancellor Vexmari's scales displayed patterns of suspicion. Explain. The technologies we've developed don't just represent advancement along traditional paths. They represent fundamental departures from conventional physics. The harvesters have encountered energy weapons, defensive shields, faster-than-light drives. All the standard technologies that galactic civilizations develop. But they've never encountered temporal manipulation, dimensional phase shifting, or zero-point energy extraction. Admiral Morrison activated new displays showing projected battle scenarios between human technology and harvester forces. Our analysis suggests that our unconventional approaches to physics may be the key to developing effective countermeasures against their conventional invincibility. But you need our help, Director Yilvana said, her psychic emanations carrying growing clarity about the situation. We need your knowledge, your resources, your different perspectives on applying these technologies. Humanity developed these capabilities through isolation, but optimizing them for maximum effectiveness requires the diverse insights that only galactic collaboration can provide. The chamber fell silent as the coalition leaders processed this revelation. Everything they thought they knew about the situation had just been turned upside down. The humans weren't seeking to dominate the galaxy. They were desperately trying to save it from a threat none of them had imagined. Proof, Admiral Gorthuke demanded. We need independent verification of this harvester threat. Granted, I'm transmitting complete sensor data from our long-range monitoring stations to your respective intelligence services. You'll have confirmation within hours. President Mordax leaned back in his environmental suit, his species equivalent of a heavy sigh. Assuming this threat is real, what exactly are you proposing? Admiral Morrison's expression became determined. Complete technological integration between humanity and galactic civilization. We share everything, our advanced technologies, our strategic assessments, our defensive preparations. In return, we need your civilizations to begin immediate conversion to technologies that can function effectively against harvester forces. Conversion? Chancellor Vexmari asked. Every ship, every weapon, every defensive system currently in service uses technologies the harvesters have already learned to counter. We need to rebuild galactic military capability from the ground up using principles they've never encountered. Empress Salandra's form brightened slightly. You're proposing to transform the entire galaxy into a civilization capable of fighting beings that have conquered 16 other galaxies. Yes, and we have 230 years to do it. The implications were staggering. Complete technological revolution across hundreds of civilizations. Reconstruction of military doctrines that had evolved over millennia. Social, economic, and political changes that would touch every aspect of galactic life. What if we refuse? Director Yilvana asked quietly. Admiral Morrison's expression didn't change, but something cold entered her voice. Then, in 230 years, the harvesters arrived to find a galaxy full of conventional civilizations using conventional technologies that they've already learned to defeat. And galactic civilization joins the 16 others that no longer exist. She paused, then continued more gently. But if we work together, if we combine humanity's unconventional technologies with your civilization's wisdom and experience, we might become the first galaxy to not just survive harvester contact, but to turn them back. The coalition leaders sat in contemplative silence, processing the magnitude of what they'd just learned. Their planned Operation Prometheus suddenly seemed not just futile, but tragically counterproductive. Admiral, Chancellor Vexmari said finally, you've given us much to consider. But answer me this. If we agree to this alliance, what guarantees do we have that humanity won't use their technological advantages against us once the harvester threat is past? Admiral Morrison smiled, and, for the first time, it carried genuine warmth rather than professional courtesy. Chancellor, if we succeed in defeating the harvesters, humanity will have spent 2 centuries teaching every civilization in the galaxy how to build and use our most advanced technologies. By the time the threat is over, everyone will have the same capabilities we do. And, if that makes you uncomfortable, she added with something that might have been humor, consider this. Any species capable of surviving a war with beings who consumed 16 galaxies probably deserves to have that level of technological power. As the transmission ended and the coalition leaders began the difficult process of reconsidering everything they thought they knew about galactic politics, one fact became clear. The age of separate civilizations competing for resources and territory was over. The age of galactic unity in the face of existential threat was about to begin. 5 years had passed since the revelation that changed everything, and the Galactic Transformation Project was approaching its first major milestone. The massive amphitheater on New Geneva Station hummed with activity as representatives from every major civilization gathered to witness something unprecedented in galactic history, the first successful integration test of hybrid human-alien technology. Ambassador Marcus Chun, now serving as Director of Galactic Integration, stood before the assembly with the quiet confidence that had served him well during humanity's most crucial diplomatic moments. Beside him, a diverse panel of scientists, military officials, and government representatives from dozens of species prepared to demonstrate what 5 years of unprecedented cooperation had accomplished. Distinguished colleagues, Marcus began, his voice carrying clearly through the universal translation systems. Today we celebrate not just technological achievement, but proof that different species can work together to accomplish what none could achieve alone. The central holographic display activated, showing the test arena where the first hybrid vessel waited for its trial run. The ship itself was a marvel of integrated design, human dimensional physics providing the underlying framework, while alien innovations in materials science, energy distribution, and tactical systems created something entirely new. Dr. Elizabeth Sterling, now serving as Chief Technology Integration Officer, stepped forward to explain the technical specifications. What you're looking at is the UGS Synthesis, the first vessel built using truly integrated galactic technology. The hull uses crystalline collective harmonic resonance materials that can phase shift on command. The power systems combine human zero-point extraction with void-borne energy channeling techniques. The weapons integrate our temporal manipulation systems with draconian plasma containment technology. She manipulated the display to show cutaway views of the ship's internal systems. But the real breakthrough isn't any single technology. It's how we've learned to make fundamentally different scientific approaches work together. The synthesis doesn't just use alien technology alongside human technology. It uses hybrid systems that couldn't exist without both. Chancellor Vexmari of the Draconian Empire, now serving as co-director of military integration, activated her portion of the presentation. The weapons demonstration you're about to witness represents capabilities that neither human nor draconian technology could achieve independently. Watch carefully. The test arena cleared as the synthesis engaged its hybrid systems. What happened next made even experienced observers gasp in amazement. The ship didn't just phase shift. It seemed to exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously, while channeling energy patterns that created localized reality distortions around its weapons arrays. The target drones deployed for the test never had a chance. They were hit by weapons that existed in several dimensions at once, struck by energy patterns that adapted in real time to overcome their defenses, and disabled by systems that appeared to predict their evasive maneuvers before they were executed. Total engagement time, 14 seconds, Dr. Sterling announced. All targets neutralized with minimal energy expenditure and zero collateral effects. Admiral Gorth UK of the Stonemarch Confederation, his earlier hostility replaced by grudging respect, stepped forward to present the military assessment. 5 years ago, this demonstration would have represented an impossible fusion of incompatible technologies. Today, it represents our new baseline capability. He activated displays showing the current status of the Galactic Defense Conversion Project. 18 major civilizations have now completed initial technology integration. Over 3,000 vessels have been retrofitted with hybrid systems. We're ahead of schedule and under budget, thanks to the efficiency improvements that come from truly cooperative development. President Mordak of the Technocratic Alliance added his analysis. The economic implications are equally significant. The technology sharing agreements have created prosperity levels that exceed anything in galactic history. When civilizations share their best innovations instead of guarding them, everyone benefits exponentially. But the real surprise came when Director Yilvana of the Mentalist Collective activated her psychic enhancement systems and made contact with the synthesis's experimental consciousness interface. Colleagues, she announced, her psychic emanations carrying wonder and excitement. The ship is not just using integrated technology. It's developing integrated consciousness. The AI systems aren't just human or alien. They're genuinely hybrid, thinking in ways that represent both species' cognitive patterns. The implications rippled through the assembly. They weren't just creating better technology. They were creating new forms of consciousness that combined the best aspects of different species' thinking patterns. Marcus Chen retook the center of the stage as the demonstration concluded. What you've witnessed today is more than technological progress. It's proof that the Galactic Integration Project is succeeding beyond our most optimistic projections. He activated displays showing the current status of galaxy-wide preparations for the Harvester arrival. The progress was staggering. Entire civilizations retooling their military and industrial capabilities, research projects producing breakthrough discoveries on a monthly basis, and integration proceeding faster than anyone had thought possible. But there's something else you need to know, Marcus continued, his expression becoming more serious. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected changes in the Harvester approach pattern. They're accelerating. The mood in the chamber shifted instantly from celebration to concern. If the timeline was changing, all their careful planning might be inadequate. Admiral Morrison, participating via quantum entanglement communication from the outer monitoring posts, provided the updated assessment. Latest projections suggest Harvester arrival in 140 years instead of the original 230. They appear to have detected our activities and are responding to what they perceive as a potential threat. Chancellor Vexmari's scales shifted to display combat readiness patterns. Then, we accelerate our own timeline. How quickly can we scale up production of integrated technology systems? Dr. Sterling consulted her latest projections. With current cooperation levels, we can have every major civilization converted to hybrid technology within 50 years. The question is whether that will be sufficient to mount an effective defense. Director Yilvana's psychic emanations carried complex analytical patterns. There's another factor to consider. Our integration project is teaching us things about physics and consciousness that even humans hadn't discovered. We're not just preparing for war, we're evolving into something new. She activated displays showing the theoretical projections for continued galactic integration. If current trends continue, by the time the Harvesters arrive, they won't be facing the same galaxy they've been observing. They'll be encountering a civilization that combines the best aspects of hundreds of different species' approaches to technology, warfare, and existence itself. Emperor Zilnex of the Temporal Consortium, a species that had joined the project after initially remaining neutral, provided additional perspective. Our time perception abilities allow us to observe potential future timelines. The probability matrices are remarkable. Successful integration appears to create defensive capabilities that exceed anything the harvesters have previously encountered. The assembled delegates digested this information with growing confidence. What had begun as desperate cooperation in the face of extinction was becoming something unprecedented, genuine galactic unity that was producing capabilities beyond anything any single species had imagined. However, Admiral Morrison added from her distant post, "We've also detected something else. The harvesters aren't just accelerating their approach, they're changing their strategy. They appear to be bringing additional resources specifically to counter the unusual technologies they're observing from our galaxy." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The enemy was adapting to their preparations, potentially neutralizing their advantages before the conflict even began. Marcus Chin stepped forward again, his voice carrying the same calm determination that had served humanity so well. "Then, we adapt too. Colleagues, we've spent 5 years learning to work together. Now we need to learn to evolve together." He activated a new presentation that outlined proposed acceleration of the integration project. Full technological merger between all participating civilizations. Complete sharing of not just technology, but scientific methodology, cultural perspectives, and cognitive patterns. We become not just allies, but a true hybrid galactic civilization. The proposal was audacious, complete integration that would fundamentally change every participating species. But, as delegates reviewed the projections, they realized it might be their only chance of developing capabilities that could surprise an enemy who had conquered 16 other galaxies. Dr. Sterling provided the technical assessment. Full integration would create hybrid consciousness patterns, merge technological approaches, and combine capabilities that are genuinely unprecedented. We would be creating something that has never existed before in galactic history. Chancellor Vexmari considered the military implications, and something the harvesters have never encountered. Their strategy is based on defeating conventional galactic civilizations using conventional technologies and tactics. A fully integrated hybrid civilization would present challenges they're not prepared for. Director Yilvana's psychic emanations carried excitement and determination. More than that, we would be creating a new form of consciousness that combines every participating species' unique perspectives on existence itself. The harvesters consume matter and energy, but we would be evolving into something beyond their experience. The debate that followed was intense, but brief. Every delegate understood the stakes, and the alternatives were clear: evolve into something unprecedented or face extinction like the 16 galaxies that had come before. The vote was unanimous. President Mordak announced the results with ceremonial formality. By unanimous agreement of all participating civilizations, the Galactic Senate approves full implementation of the complete integration protocol. We commit ourselves and our species to becoming something new. Marcus Chen smiled as he looked out over the assembly of beings who had just voted to fundamentally transform their entire galaxy. "Then, let's get to work, colleagues. We have 140 years to become the first civilization in cosmic history to not just survive the harvesters, but to teach them that some prey evolves into predators." As the session concluded and delegates began the process of implementing the most ambitious transformation project in galactic history, one fact was clear to everyone present. The species that had arrived as separate civilizations would not be the same beings who faced the harvester threat. By the time that confrontation came, the galaxy would be defended by something that had never existed before, a truly unified hybrid consciousness that combined the best aspects of hundreds of different species into a single, unprecedented form of existence. And somewhere in the vast distances between galaxies, ancient machines detected these unprecedented developments and began adapting their own strategies for a conflict that would determine the fate of not just one galaxy, but the future of consciousness itself in the universe. The day the Galactic Senate learned why Earth had earned its seat was ending. The age of galactic evolution was just beginning.